everybody. Welcome to the Sweat here on a nice Monday morning. Hopefully, wherever you are, the weather is better than it is for us here in New England. But, you know, one last day of February before turning the calendar to March. It's a good opportunity for us to celebrate all things NBA, NHL. We'll do a little college basketball, mix in a bunch of stuff. And without further ado, we'll get to our analysts here. We got Matt Meiselman, Julian Edlow, both, of course, DraftKings contributors, as well as DK Nation Junior Sports Editor Chinmay Vaidya. Welcome to the program. How are you, man?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk.
Well, hopefully you'll still be willing to come back after all of this is said and done. You never know with Mize and Jules here. Let's get into it, guys. NBA building blocks. And of course, if anybody has any thoughts, comments along the way, drop them in our chat, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. We're going to break down tonight's best DFS and sportsbook plays in tonight's 7-game NBA slate. Let's go with which guard that you are going to build around for DFS tonight. Chinmay, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I like two plays here tonight, Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, either or, whichever you're feeling. The Hornets defensively are ranking the bottom 5 in the following categories: points per game allowed, field goals made allowed, 3 points made allowed, and they actually rank worst in opponent assists per game allowed. So both guards are looking really good tonight for Milwaukee. Whichever your preference is between Holiday and Middleton, that's the guy that I would go with.
Mize, do you like one of those guys?
Yeah, I think they're all right. I'm a little worried about a blowout for that game, honestly. The Hornets on the back-to-back, but I do think it's a really good spot for Milwaukee. The other game I'm looking at, though, is the Memphis-San Antonio game, where the Spurs defense without Derek White, specifically against guards, whether it's been the same or not, I mean, they've rested players, so I don't know if we can use the recent stats on them that much, but Derek White's the guy that would have guarded Ja Morant. So I think Morant is a really good play here. Murray himself at 10,600 is fine, but Morant's actually $900 cheaper. And I think this matchup is maybe stronger than the season numbers would indicate. So yeah, paying up for Morant or Murray, I think this is a good game to look to stack to. This could be another one. People are a little worried of a potential blowout. So maybe going the other direction here. And the Grizzlies may be shorthanded a little too. Brandon Clark and John Conchar are in the injury report. So it could be a boost for everyone on this team.
Jules, assuming he plays, Fred VanVleet's in a hell of a spot, only 8K for Toronto.
Yeah, not a bad spot for Fred VanVleet. I'm actually going to go to the opposite side of the matchup. Keep it kind of simple here. Go with a mid-price play. I like to spend up at forward and center. So I'm going to go with 5,900 for Seth Curry. You know, the analysis is pretty elementary. You know me, Kaufman. I'm not very smart. I like to keep it simple. Kyrie is playing the road games. He's not playing the home games. He put on a show on Saturday night. But you have Seth Curry coming down in salary, yet returning to play at home. So no Kyrie. Not the best matchup against Toronto. I'll say that. But I think just the amount of volume and usage that will now go to Curry with Kyrie off the floor gives him a pretty good boost. So he still managed 30 DraftKings points with Kyrie on the floor. But, you know, a couple of those games without Kyrie, 38.75 DraftKings points against Sacramento, over 35 against the Celtics in a blowout loss. So I think Curry's a pretty safe play and very affordable.
Let's stay with you here, Jules, and look at the forwards to build around, since you said you want to pay up there. I think it's interesting because, you know, obviously you have Giannis and he's 12K. You got DeMar DeRozan at 12 too, but it seems like, again, some of the mid-range guys, whether it's Anthony Edwards, Evan Mobley, Wendell Carter, guys like that, Pascal Siakam, they seem to be in better spots. What's your motivation?
So I like Giannis a lot. I didn't use him here because I figured somebody's got to be using him. He's expensive, 12,000, but he averages like close to 70 DraftKings points, I think, this year in 3 games against the Hornets. The Bucks have some losses to the Hornets. So it's a good spot for Giannis, no doubt. I'm going with Jimmy Butler, 8,900 against his former team, the Chicago Bulls. Again, I just like when guys are off the floor. No Kyle Lowry, personal absence in this game. That turns Jimmy Butler into more of the point guard. They kind of share those duties, scatter their minutes when they're both in, but no Lowry. I expect a lot more ball handling for Jimmy Butler, and that to reflect in his in his stat line when it comes specifically to the assist department. He's been, lower than usual lately with assists. We haven't seen him get up in double digits for a while, but this is a game I think he can do that and get a double-double.
Chinmay, which way are you going forward?
So I'm actually going the other way in terms of find the values here and go with some of the mid-range guys. A couple guys that I like. Buddy Hield and O'Shea Brissett for the Pacers. Hield has actually been good on rebounds and assists. He's not just that shooter that we expected him to be when he comes to Indiana. He's at 21, 6, and 5 since joining the Pacers, and he's still shooting the ball really well, about 50% from the field, 37.5% from deep. Brissett in the last 2 games has really come on with some extended minutes. So if you don't quite have the juice for Hield, then Brissett might be the guy to go with.
Sees a couple of guys torch my Celtics, Matt, and he's coming in hard on his first show.
That was not a fun Celtics game yesterday, was it? Yeah, I don't know what's happening. The Celtics beat the best teams and then lose to the worst teams. But I actually do like the Pacers a lot here potentially. I think that after that win yesterday, there's a good chance we see a few Pacers guys sit out this one in Orlando. This is a team that doesn't have anything to play for anymore. I don't think they're realistically even trying to get into the playoffs. And Malcolm Brogdon's been dealing with injuries all season. I'd be very surprised if he plays. But this seems like a good spot to get Tyrese Halliburton or Buddy Hield a night off too, actually. If one of them's out there without the other, I think they're both good plays, but we could get a situation where neither of them plays. And then we get the Lance Stevenson show because he actually didn't play yesterday. I could see him back in the lineup and then maybe someone else sitting. So this is a very interesting situation to me. I don't think we know exactly yet what this Pacers team will look like tonight. Brogdon's the one for sure that I think winds up sitting. So in the forward department, a lot of these guys are guard and forward eligible, but I think there's a lot of potential plays from this team.
Well, and as we segue to centers, there are a lot of guys who are forward and center eligible, obviously, Matt. Some of the guys that I've already mentioned, whether it's Giannis or Siakam or, Mobley, Carter, guys like that. You also have that you could mix in, just some higher price guys that are available on the slate, Domantas Sabonis, Karl Anthony Towns as well. Who stands out to you?
I think Sabonis is the one that makes the most sense to pay up for. He'll probably be somewhat popular, but this is such a good matchup against Oklahoma City. And they don't have a lot of their best defensive players playing. I know that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander came back a couple of games ago, and that's the player that makes headlines. But guys like Mike Muscala and Lou Dort and Kendrick Williams not playing, that just makes the defense so much worse across the board. And then SGA coming back doesn't help the defense either. I think we should expect to see much higher scoring games from OKC going forward. And we have seen those games recently. They played Indiana in overtime, but that game was really high scoring before it even got there. Same with the prior game against the Suns. So I just think this is a really good spot for Sacramento. Sabonis probably plays as the center too, because Rashawn Holmes has been out. So he may spend the entire game that he's on the court as the center. There's just so much potential for him to score fantasy points. And the Kings aren't good enough necessarily to be worried about a blowout either. So this really sets up well for the Kings and Sabonis in particular.
What do you like, Chinmay?
I agree with Matt. I think Sabonis is a nice play, averaging 19 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists since joining the Kings at the deadline. Holmes is questionable with a back issue, so a spot for extended minutes for Sabonis as well. As an alternate play, not quite as pricey. I like Jaren Jackson. I know he's struggled since the All-Star break, but I do think he's due for an uptick against a Spurs team that struggles to defend on the interior. So Jaren Jackson Jr. could be the alternate play if you don't want to pay up for Sabonis.
All right, Jules, why don't you give us your center?
Sabonis was my guy here. Matt already pretty much covered him. It's too good of a matchup. OKC's going way downhill. Like you said, a lot of their top defenders are out. We saw Sabonis, it was with Indy, but we saw Sabonis already go over 70 DraftKings points in the matchup specifically. And again, it's the Kings. So if people are blowing out the Thunder, if there's a team that can't, it's the Kings. I expect it to be an up and down game and still a close enough game for Sabonis to keep going off.
Okay, so now we get to really open things up. Regardless of whatever position that you want to look at, we need the top value option tonight. Matt, we'll go right back to you. I'll tell you, a guy that I really like is Brandon Goodwin, but you guys are the ones that are actually paid to do this. So who stands out?
No, I don't think there's really a difference between us because I'll take Goodwin. I that's who I want to go with. I think it's a really good spot for a couple of reasons. He played 38 minutes last game, and the Cavs don't have other guards because not only are Darius Garland and Karis LeVert dealing with injuries, so is Rajon Rondo. And I don't think that we just get Tim Frazier stealing the point guard minutes. I think Point Chetty was just a failed experiment at the times this season when they went with it. So I would expect that Goodwin plays big minutes again. And he also wasn't great last game. I think it was 2 for 11 from the field, and he only put up 24 fantasy points. So the people who are game log watching might look at that and say I didn't get that much out of him, and maybe that keeps his ownership down. But 38 minutes for a guy that's 5,200 and will have the ball in his hands a lot. There aren't really a lot of ball dominant players on Cleveland. So I think we should expect a much better game from him. And the matchup isn't bad either against Minnesota. So I do actually like that call. Yeah, we can switch roles. That's fine.
That's all right. So Jules, unless you also like the Cavs point guard, who are you going to? Who are you gravitating to?
Yeah, I had 3 names circled here. Goodwin was one of them. Jeremy Lamb with the Kings for similar reasons to Sabonis was another one. And who was the last one? You made me forget, Kaufman.
I'm sorry.
Gabe Vincent.
I was going to guess Gabe Vincent.
Yes,
okay, go ahead.
Of course you were going to guess Gabe Vincent.
You should have let me.
Same reasons as Butler. You plug him in for Lowry, getting a lot of those point guard minutes. Every time I watch Gabe Vincent play, not that, the eye test has anything to do with DFS, but he impresses me. He's earned his minutes, and he should get a lot more with Lowry off the floor. So, yeah, I think Vincent's in a good spot here.
Okay, Chinmay, how many lists or names are on your list, rather?
I only have a couple, both for the Heat. Gabe Vincent was obviously one of the choices there with Kyle Lowry out, but I also think Tyler Hero is a good matchup in this spot. He's likely to get the start here with Lowry out. And even though Butler does handle a lot of the ball with Lowry sideline, at least he did during that stretch, I think the Heat want to get Hero as many opportunities as possible. And I know the Bulls perimeter defense, the Sunmu, the matchup can be quite intimidating for people, but I like Hero in this spot. He's shown that he's not afraid to go up against some of the top defenders, and he's ready to take on that challenge. I think he's set for a big game here tonight.
All right, we'll wrap up this portion of the program, the NBA portion, looking at the DraftKings Sportsbook and the 7-game slate. And Jules, will go right back to you here because you so regularly tweet out your bets on a daily basis. People should follow you, check out your advice. Who are you building that bet slip around this evening?
Thank you for pointing that out, Adam. I would encourage you to follow me and make money. But another person that I often talk with about this is Matt, who's just shy and doesn't tweet them out, but he does very well as well. I was hoping you were going to go to Matt first because I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to bet on this card. If you're you should have in mind what you're going to bet at, 11, 12 Eastern. But if you're actually betting them, you're setting yourself up for who knows what, because we know follow DK Live, get all the news throughout the day, and crazy things are going to happen. Here's what I have circled, though. I do play the first quarter, first half trends. The Heat have been a very good first quarter team this season. And I think they are 7-3-1 in their last 11 against that first quarter spread. The Bulls are actually the second worst first quarter team in the NBA, and they've been off to their worst starts at home, 13-20 against the first quarter spread. So I might play some Miami early in this one. I think it's like a 1-point first quarter spread.
Matt, seems to me he teed you up nicely there.
Yeah, well, everyone's teed me up nicely here because we already talked about the good matchups for Gabe Vincent and Tyler Hero, and now we're going into Miami trends. And I just think that this line is mispriced in more of a macro sense. The Bulls, to me, are the most overachieving team in the NBA this season. And until they get Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball back, I just don't see this level of winning and production and just ability to mitigate all these defensive issues. I just don't see it continuing. And even though Kyle Lowry is out, this is something I've talked about all season with the Heat. Lowry's a really good player, but Miami has as much depth in the backcourt as anyone. And Vincent and Hero and Max Strus and Duncan Robinson, these guys can fill in just fine. So the line has dropped a little bit where the Heat are only -4.5 right now because Lowry's out. I think it matters, but it doesn't matter that much. So to me, this line should be a bit higher. That's really the main bet that I'm looking at. And then, of course, if Indiana sits a bunch of players, you kind of have to be interested in Orlando if we get that situation where guys like Brogdon, Halliburton, Hield, maybe some of them don't play. So it's Miami and then tentatively Orlando, depending what the Pacers do.
Chinmay Vaidya, first voice, last voice. Where are you betting tonight?
I like Heat, as the other guys have mentioned, for a number of reasons, but I also like Spurs against the spread with the Grizzlies. The Spurs have been really good offensively after the break, and the Grizzlies have struggled a bit. Even with a lot of guys out against the Heat, the Spurs put up almost 130 points. So with those guys coming back with some extended rest, I like them to at least cover the spread here against the Grizzlies.